as human beings, we have this need for relationships. And I, in my life, have identified that really at this point in my life, I'm only interested in long-term relationships because I feel as though long-term relationships are the most fruitful. When it comes to retention, it is the ultimate win-win-win.
Hello, and welcome to Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast. This podcast is dedicated to chiropractors who are in the seasons of launching and building their practice. Join myself, Dr. Lona, and my co-host, Dr. Bobby, as we have conversations each week as it relates to building the practice of your dreams. And remember, you can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. We are here to lead you on the way.
Welcome back, team, to the Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast with myself, Dr. Bobby Lagasovic, and the amazing Dr. Lona Cook. Dr. Lona, welcome back. What's going on?
Hey, Bobby, I'm excited to continue the conversation of retention today.
Oh, likewise. You know what? When we got off the back of the last podcast on retention, the thing that was in the back of my mind is, man, we've got to do a retention series. Retention is something we could go like 10 podcasts deep or 10 episodes deep. Hey, you can make a podcast just on retention, right? So definitely, guys, if you want to go deep on retention, hey, send us some messages, guys, or give us a 5-star review and put that in the messages, and we'll make sure that we unpack a deep lying retention series because there's so much to it. You know, if you want someone to have a breakthrough, and retention is education, there's so much to it. And it's interesting, when I had this experience multiple times, like when I ask a group of chiropractors to go, who would like to see more new patients? Most of the hands go up, but not all. Okay, some people are like, no, we see a lot, right? Like, it's fine. When I ask people like, okay, who could improve and who wants to improve their conversion? A lot of hands go up, but not all. Some people are like, no, our conversion is solid, right? You're sure I can always improve it, but it's solid. When I ask the question, who could do better when it comes to retention? Almost every single hand goes up. It's almost like this blind spot that we all innately realize we could freaking do better with retention, yet we still put barely any energy into mastering this art form of retention, the systems that revolve around retention. Has your experience been something like that?
Yeah, I think that I've never heard it put that way, but I think you're spot on. And I also think part of it is too, like, we put so much effort in the front end, they're a heavier lift a lot of times, that because it's a heavy lift, you spend more time training on it, you spend more emphasis on it, and
yeah.
Working, even us doing a longer, we're going to do a 2-part retention. We were like, we want to do this because it's showing that, like, this is where you need to spend your time. Doesn't mean you don't spend time on attraction and conversion, but don't gloss over the retention part, because putting effort in here and stewarding the people who have already come in, the hard work of getting them in the doors is done. Now it's time to really be mindful about how we matriculate through care.
Yeah, guaranteed. And one fact that I would guarantee is the case with you is if you cast your mind back to what's your vision story for success. So if I said to you, Dr. Lona, close your eyes, look at 3 years in advance, and give me your vision story of what do your offices look like? What does success look like for you? Tell me every detail of it. Tell me how many families you're seeing. Tell me how many children you're seeing. Tell me what the office looks like. How big is your team? How big is the associates, right? One thing I guarantee is when you do that exercise and you close your eyes and you visualize the practice of your dream, you're not visualizing a practice where you're like, wow, we're seeing 150 new patients and there's all these people in the initial intensive phase of care with back pain that are coming in, they're training slowly, getting better and asking all these difficult questions, but we're handling the difficult questions, right? You're not saying things like, oh yeah, they're being really hard and they're asking all these questions, but we're figuring out the questions and we've got great objective management. No. I guarantee when you do this exercise with the majority of practices, they say something along the lines of, and I don't want to cast your vision for you, but it's going to be something like, we are a practice that's full of healthy and happy people. Maybe you inserted in there, we see families. Maybe you inserted in there, we see people that are going through different journeys of health. You inserted in there, people are coming in with smiles, they're healthy, they're helping stay healthy and optimizing their body. Right? Am I right?
100%. Yes.
All right. So you visualize the retention
in practice all day.
So you visualize in your dreams, guys, you're visualizing retention-based practice. I want to make that clear for you. All right. You're visualizing retention-based practice because as human beings, we have this need for relationships. And I, in my life, have identified that really at this point in my life, I'm only interested in long-term relationships because I feel as though long-term relationships are the most fruitful. When it comes to retention, it is the ultimate win-win-win. All right. When someone stays under care long-term in my office, it's a win for the patient because we do our best work over time, full stop. Right. I know that for a fact. I don't adjust my family onesies and twosies. So if I don't do that for my family, then it would be unethical for me and out of integrity if I do that for other people. Right. Number two, it's the win for your team. I guarantee that your team loves looking after people that have been with you for years. I bet you they love when families come in, when kids come in, when generations come in, right? You get grandparents, parents, kids. We've had 4 generations at one stage in my family. In my practice. I guarantee your team, it's a win for your team. And number 3, it's a win for your business. It is the best business model in the world. When you can educate people, really it's about creating and collecting diamonds. And over time, you just collect more and more diamonds. Dr. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but here's a question I'm going to ask you. And I encourage everyone to consider this question. So I know everyone's got different techniques and adjustment length in actual time is almost irrelevant. But here's a question that I would ask you. How long would it take you to adjust me, Dr. Bobby? So I come to your office, you know my case, everything back to front. How long would it take you to adjust me?
2 minutes. Okay.
And would that be an easy process or would that be difficult? Would I be full of questions and be like, hang on, Lona, tell me this, tell me that. Why am I still hurting here? Can you check my lower back as well? Or would it just be a smooth, easy process and I would just be awesome?
It would be a easy process, especially if you're one of our patients that is a wellness patient. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So think about this for a second, guys. The reason for that is because I'm an understander. I get it, right? And if I were to ask Dr. Lona, how many versions of Dr. Bobby could she adjust in a day, right? I bet you the answer to that question would be a large amount of people. All right.
Yes.
Because when people turn into understanders, they're like balloons. They're effortless. All right. Whereas when people are believers, and like Lona said, the early phases of their care, they're heavy. They're like rocks. And if your practice is full of believers, you're dragging people with full of questions, and that, quite frankly, is exhausting, right?
Yes.
So here's what I want to get your feedback on, Lona. I know that people who listen to this understand a lot of them already doing this. Okay, they have different care plans, right? So when someone starts care, your care plans, quite frankly, are the product that you offer. Like they're the core offering, and we need to make sure that we master with 10 out of 10 clarity our care plans. And if we do that, that's going to really help facilitate your retention to the next level. So talk to me a little bit about care plans inside of your office. What's been your experience? Do you have different kinds of care plans? And how do your care plans have such a big impact on your retention?
Yes. So conceptually, I want to just say there's something called the hard easy. And I think we've maybe brought it up before, but your way you deliver, for most of us, your report of findings is going to happen on day 2. And that's the introduction to the time, the frequency, and the financial commitment that this process is going to be. And so I want to handle as much of the hard stuff up front, like how long is this going to take? What is asked of me as the practice member, the patient that wants to hopefully engage in chiropractic care, because that's why they step foot in the door. Now we get to steward them and lead them through what the process actually looks like. And they obviously have financial questions. I want to handle all of that up front so that we can get the hard stuff out of the way. And then the rest of the care that comes after that can be easy. Like what Dr. Bobby just said, like once people understand what the process is going to be and they've made the choice because you've actually laid it out cleanly for them, and they know that this isn't just a one and done, or just come back when you feel like it, or maybe you should do this where you're wishy-washy. Then it gets a lot easier, and it's an easier lift for your whole team because you've set up day 1, day 2, day 3 in a way that's answered a lot of questions, addressed what the process is going to look like, and gave them an option to basically say yes or no. And so if we've teed it up well as our heart's in the right place, we're communicating from that place of I'm offering you what I would want someone to offer my own family member if they went somewhere else. So that's one thing that you have to look at. Like if my family member went somewhere else and they did not educate the person on the choice ahead of them and just said, oh, come back when you feel like it, I would be mad because that's a door that closes for that person potentially to access what chiropractic could offer them. So yes, one size doesn't always fit all as far as frequency and number of adjustments in a certain length of time. That's the doctoring part of this. You have to know what am I finding as far as the severity of their case and how often they're going to need to come in to get to the goals that they have. But there should be a number of visits over a quantity of time. So for us, we do an initial care plan that's 3 months, and the frequency may be slightly different.
But for the most part, they're going to start at 3 times a week or 2 times a week. And there's going to be reeval set at 12 visits every 12 visits. So that's our model. And it lays it out cleanly that we're asking you to see this number of visits over this amount of time. And here's your financial arrangement where you can pay in full or pay monthly.
Yep. I love it. I love it. So what I heard you say there is basically earlier in the process, you want to lay out clear expectations and agreements. So one of the core elements of successful long-term relationships is clear expectations and agreements, and then sticking to those expectations and agreements. And you're making expectations and agreements around frequency of care. So it sounds like it can be 3 times a week, but also something really key here that I picked up on is it's also over a specific period of time. So I know everyone's care plan might be different, but your initial intensives might sound something like 3 times a week for 4 weeks, twice a week for 12 weeks. So 36 adjustments over 4 months. Or someone might do 24 adjustments over 3 months, right? Or 36 adjustments over 3 months, 3 times a week, right? For 12 weeks. But it's a specific protocol of adjustments over a specific protocol of time. And so we reach an agreement around that, which means it's not 36 adjustments over whenever, right? So you can change, cancel, miss appointments, right? It's like, no, it needs to be done over a specific period of time. Is that correct?
Correct. Because it's just our minds have to latch on to like when Bobby said breakthrough on the last podcast, part of that breakthrough is understanding what's asked of them. And if it's like, well, you could do this, then it's hard for them to really, okay, I can get here 3 times a week, or I need to change my schedule around, but yes, I can make this happen. We need to be clear about what we're asking them to do.
So I'll tell you what I realized in practice. And I didn't even realize this. I've been in practice, I think 11 years practicing. I probably realized this maybe just 5 years ago. You're always evolving and changing and getting better. You said something before where it was hard, easy, where on the front end, you want to go through things, make things clear, set clear expectations agreements, so it's easier on the back end. So what I started to recognize is I was like, okay, what is the absolute front end? Like, when does a relationship actually start for the first time? And when I pondered this, what I realized, it's day 0. And day 0 is the relationship starts when we first meet the person. Now, meet the person could be they land on our website. Meet the person can be at a screening, you meet them. It can be through social media advertising. But let me give you an example of how I installed this. Right now, tonight, actually, I've got a dinner workshop booked. So my new business development manager sent me a message last night before we went to bed. She's got 45 people confirmed for a dinner tonight. The capacity of the restaurant is roughly about 42, 43, 44. So let's go tonight and I deliver a workshop to 40 people. What I recognized is in that workshop, when I'm getting towards the end of that workshop and I'm going into my close, what I used to do before is I used to just close, right? So great. If you thought that was great, you're going to love what's happening next. Hey, people always ask us, how do I find out how my spine is doing? How do I find out how my nervous system is doing? And I used to go into my closing sequence. Well, the great news is tonight there's a special offer and you can pop in and, for X, Y, Z, you get this and this and this. So I used to do my close like that, right? And what I realized about 5 years ago is I was like, no, hang on. Rather than doing that, and then when they come in on day 1, day 2, then I start revealing more and more and more. And the ultimate reveal is at the end of day 2 when I say, here it is, it's 36 adjustments over the next 3 months, right? With progress reports every 12 visits. No, what I thought is, why don't I make them expect that and want it, even better, want it earlier in the process? So what I instill in my workshop is towards the end, when I get to my pre-close, what I do now is I show a whole bunch of before afters, right? So previous people, okay, the real people that, I show them the before x-ray, I show them the after x-ray. We use x-ray in our examination process, one of the tools. So I would show them, all right, here's Martha. Martha came in with this, that, the other, right? Here's her first x-ray. All right, guys, let me show you now. You guys are pros at reading x-ray. Ready? Here's Martha's new x-ray. Bang, and I show new x-rays and I ask them, what do you see is changing? And the audience tells me, wow, that's changing. This is changing. Great. And then I list all right, all improvements that Martha had in her life. And I do that with 3 examples and people really start to get into it. They're like, that's changing. Yeah, this is changing. Excellent. Great. And then what I do is I ask them, I go, what does that date say for the first x-ray? And they're like, oh, August 2022. What does the date say for the second x-ray? January 2023. Great. What does the date say for that one? And they actually look at the dates and the timelines. And I explain Martha's story, where I say, look, Martha was coming in the beginning more often, 3 times a week in the beginning. Why? I explain the why. Because in the beginning, we've got to make changes. We've got to stop the negative momentum that Martha is on, start the positive momentum, right? Then we did progress report every 12 visits with new scans, right? So what I'm doing, I'm instilling them already, okay, how often she was coming in. I was still instilling them already that there's progress reports. I even instilled there's a workshop, right, that she got to, which really helped her understand, have a breakthrough, what she needs to be doing, what's her part of the bargain, because it's teamwork. Chiropractic is done with you. And then on top of that, I even install timelines. So then when you get someone coming in on day 1, day 2, they actually already have the full picture. And then we've noticed that our conversion as a result of that just went sky high, like 90+%, because people's expectation was basically the care plan that we're giving.
Oh, you're genius. I love that.
That's
That's awesome.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got reminded of that. I wouldn't have even shared that until you triggered my mind, because you're like, oh, early in the process. I was like, totally. So, and then retention is easy because they're looking forward to that major re-report. For us, it's visit 36. That's the end of initial intensive care plan. And they're clear. Our objectives in initial intensive care plan is to stop the damage. That's number one objective. Okay. Most people are on a downward spiral. Now, stop the damage is also usually accompanied with decrease in symptoms. Okay. Not always, but people's symptoms decrease, right? Our objectives are to stop the negative momentum, start the positive momentum. Those are our primary objectives in initial intensive phase of care, right? Then I explain now, then you have the option to go into corrective care. This takes longer. It's a less frequency, okay? But this is where your body now, the objectives are to start to rebuild your body long-term. We see things like chronic scar tissue breakdown here, chronic inflammation start to dissipate. Here's the big thing. Your nervous system really begins to adapt better and better. So you might notice things like increased energy. You might notice things like increased mental capacity. You might notice things like increased ability to follow through with tasks and complete tasks. People will commonly say things like, I'm sleeping better. I'm feeling better. My wife's noticed my mood is better. These are things that happen in corrective care. And then our clear goal with everyone, because this is where my family is wellness care. And our objectives in wellness care is to optimize function long-term, is to instill and teach principles that are tried and tested that lead to better longevity long-term. I like to instill this, quite frankly, in as early as possible, right? I do it in day 0. And then we started to look and go, all right, well, where can we do this for every single person? From a Facebook call that we're booking in, getting over the line, to a screen that we're doing, booking, getting them over the line. And I encourage you to do the same, because guys, you'll find that, you know, the earlier that you put this in and the better that you get at delivering this, not only does your conversion get through the roof, but your retention does too, because you're pre-framing on the front of the relationship.
So good. So good. So many nuggets. You got my mind spinning about things that we could do even earlier now on the front end.
Pretty cool, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I only got triggered by that because you said something earlier, guys. And, you know, it comes from Dr. Lona said, all right, when I had the breakthrough, this is on the last podcast around retention. When I had the breakthrough, then I was free to go and speak from stage. I was free to go and do screening. I was free to go and like propagate the message. Exactly. You've got to get to the point where you're solid and you have the breakthrough in your mind, because then the way to look at it is, I have no problem getting on a stage tonight in front of 40 people and saying that because I know that it's the truth. Right?
It's so true.
Yeah.
Right. So many of the doctors that I talk to, I think they may know their truth in their heart, but there's still something that's like a barrier to like really go out and spread the message. Sometimes maybe that's like they're afraid of like what people will think. And so the more that you can start to just recognize that like nobody can access something if they don't know and they can't find the education. And like this morning, this meeting I had, it made me remember again, like, gosh, people they just don't know what we have to offer. They want it. They don't know what's called chiropractic. Our job is to like put the message out there in every format that we can, that we're inspired to speak our message into, and then be a good steward of the people who come into your office so you actually can deliver the like life-changing results of chiropractic.
Yep, 100%, 100%. So talk to me a little bit about, again, we said that your retention is a reflection of your clarity. Now, I know we spoke about this before the show today, and we're both on the same page around this. When we talk to chiropractors, guys, and we say to people, all right, tell me your initial intensive care plans, or in fact, 0 to 10, rate how clear are you with your initial intensive care, right? Most people, especially if they've had a bit of training and coaching, pretty quickly are like, look, 9 or a 10. Yeah, my initial care plans, I'm really clear with what they look like. Great. All right. Talk to me about your corrective care plans. How clear are you with frequency, around when your progress reports are done, around your table talk, around the education systems, around when does somebody finish corrective care and when are they candidate for wellness care? 0 to 10, give me a rating. And usually the rating will come down a little bit. So if the first time was like, oh, 9 or a 10, they're usually like, yeah, pretty clear, 7 or an 8, okay? And then when you say to them, okay, talk to me about your wellness care plans. When specifically is somebody a candidate for wellness care? What are the criteria they have to meet in order to be able to qualify for wellness care? What's the frequency of care in wellness care? When do you know somebody's ready and they're graduating into wellness care? Do you have a wellness club? What are the features and the benefits of that wellness club? And that's usually when people are like, ooh, and the rating just drops down even further, right? So this is what we mean when we say your retention is a reflection of your clarity. Yet, at the same breath, if you say to the person, what's the goal for every single person that comes in your practice? They would say something like, I'd love them to move into lifetime wellness care. right? So give us a little bit of insight around this, Lona. What are the objectives of those 3 different phases of care? Well, first of all, do you have 3 different phases of care in your office? If so, how do you educate people about, okay, well, what are the objectives? Give me clarity. What's the objective of your initial intensive phase of care? What are you trying to achieve with somebody with those recommendations? And what about corrective care? What's the objectives with corrective care? What are you trying to achieve? And then what about wellness care? What's the objectives and how do I know someone's ready for wellness care?
Yep. So, Bobby, you already kind of alluded to, that in the first phase, you're really like coming in. A lot of times they're coming in for symptomatic care. Like they are motivated to get rid of something or they want to see something change. Likely, we're also finding that their spine has different stages of subluxation. And so we use Insight and Posture Pro. And so those are some of the objective measurements that we're using to educate them about what their nervous system, the connection between the spine and the nervous system and what shape that's in. And so for us, usually we start it 3 times a week for the first 4 weeks, and that's where we get this process started. And we talk about getting some wins on the board where we're starting to see some changes there. And we want to show them at that first reeval that we're starting to make a dent. I love the word that you said, like we're stopping the momentum, or we're starting to like see that we're reversing things. So that's going to be like the first hump I want to get that person over, is that when we come to that first reeval, we're having a conversation of like, what did we notice in the first 4 weeks? Because that can go, oh, there were some changes. Maybe there weren't a lot of changes. Maybe even our objective findings don't look very much different. Maybe they look worse. Like, how do we address those conversations and let them know that this is still normal? Because most of the time it is. We're in the process with them and we don't exactly know what that process for each person is going to look like. This is the art form of chiropractic, but we know it's going to be a process, right? So that's why we don't just stop there and we never just start with 12 visits, right? Because we know we're going to go quite a bit past that before we get to what we'd call like stabilization care. So again, there should be checkpoints along the way. And when we get to, depending on in our office, it's either at 24 or 36 visits is when they're starting that stabilization portion, depending on the shape of the spine and other factors that are influencing their health. When we hit that point where now we look at like we're entering stabilization care, that's where we're really looking to see that they've made headway. They've hit probably their initial goals. And then the conversation we're usually having is, what do you think would happen if we stopped getting adjusted at this point? And let them answer that. And that helps you understand, do they get it? Like, do they start to understand that this is a process, this is a choice they're making, that if we stopped it, just like if you stopped eating healthy and you stopped exercising, what happens? We go backwards, the momentum goes in the other direction. So, and then as we cross that next phase, when we get to wellness, it's really like you are healthy. You're at a point where now we're selecting whether it's once a week, twice a month, based on like the objective findings looking clear. We're holding our adjustments. The goals have been hit, that person is actually ready for true wellness care, which generally is going to be still a pretty tight frequency because we live in a time and space where most people are pretty stressed out still, not eating great food all the time, and our bodies and our nervous system need the input of chiropractic. So it's a lot of it then is lifestyle education of learning about them and knowing what their system really needs.
Okay, so I want to summarize what you said there. So because there's some gold nuggets in there, and then I also want to ask you the questions that I know people always ask me. So first of all, I heard you say there's different phases of care. So to me, it sounded like you guys have 3 distinct stages of care. You've got initial intensive phase of care, which have a frequency that goes along with that. Once they reach the end of that, you do a re-report and a re-sign. Then they move into the stabilization phase of care, where the objectives change. And like the name changes, obviously that's going to suggest what's going to change. And then they're going to get to the end of stabilization. They'll do a re-report and a re-sign, and then they're going to hopefully move into wellness care, at which point the objectives change again. Is that accurate?
Yep. And at wellness, then we do just a reeval once a year. So it moves into a different frequency.
Do you do progress reports when someone's in wellness care?
Yes, we do.
Cool. Every 12 visits still?
No, once a year.
Once a year. Gotcha. So talk to me a little bit about, here's a question everyone has. And sometimes they don't realize they have this question, and then they realize that they lack a lot of clarity around it. When is somebody a candidate for wellness care? So great, I've got someone, they've followed through, they've done their initial intensive phase of care. Somehow I re-signed them. They've been doing stabilization, whatever frequency. And now it's kind of at that point, like Dr. Bobby spoke about in the last episode, where that person is like, come back next week, come back next week, come back next week. And I'm getting a little bit lost about, are they ready for wellness care? How do I know this person is ready for wellness care? Because I should have a conversation with them, an agreement, and a celebration around like, hey, great news, you're ready for wellness care. This is where the healthiest people live. Congratulations, right? This is where you want to be. How do you know when someone is a candidate and ready to like move into wellness, get out of stabilization?
Yep. So we'll always have a reeval that precedes that. Now that, if we needed to move it up because we sense that we need to have a deeper conversation, we leave that ability to do that if needed, or change where we're at in the care plan if we had to. But they're going to go through the objective findings again. We want to see that for us, like the scans are looking clear on our inside scans, or pretty close to being balanced. And that's been consistent. Posture needs to look good. Their goals have been met, or they're at a place where like what they see for themselves as wellness, like that's where they want to be. And we can come to an agreement on that. So by the time we're at that stage, a lot of it is just asking questions to the person to elicit like, what do they want for themselves? I might see them as like, oh, they can even get to the next level. And then be like, no, I love coming, my weekly adjustment. I'm walking every day. I'm drinking my water. This is just part of my lifestyle at this point. And I'm thinking, okay, that's great. Then this is like, we've helped you lead you to this goal. You look pretty good on our objective findings. And I think we're ready to move into that phase. And so we'll walk out front and have that discussion and hand off with our office manager and check out CA, so that then that initiates graduating into like wellness care planning. And so it is like yes, like we have made it through to this point, which is now, congratulations, here we are. And in our office, there's a little better pricing and all of that then too.
Gotcha. So you said something there really important, guys. I want to again clarify it for you, because we actually do a very similar thing in our office. I picked this up as being a big issue. First of all, with all my associates, and then with all the coaching clients and our masterminds that we do, I just realized that 95% of practices, they didn't have a clear criteria where they're like, yep, when someone does this, great, fantastic, tick. That means you're reading all the requirements, you're ready for wellness care. And I've got certainty as a chiropractor that you're ready for wellness care. And then I can communicate to you as a practice member that you're ready for wellness care. So you said you had criteria there around, okay, a scan's looking a certain way, the posture photos looking a certain way, right? Examination findings, their goals. So what I was hearing in my mind is I was just hearing tick, 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 tick. Great. All right, ticks. So we in our office, we developed a criteria. We have 5, funnily enough, 5 criteria that when you meet these 5 criteria, that tells me that you're a candidate, that you're ready for wellness care, right? And I got this idea from frequent flyer points. Ready? So most people who fly a lot understand frequent flyers, in that in order to like reach a certain level of status where you get like more benefits, you have to fly a certain amount. You have to have reached a certain amount of requirements. Some of those requirements need to fly a certain amount. Some of those requirements is you need to do it with the same company, right? So if you kind of reach a certain amount of miles, or depending which part of the world you're in, kilometers, great, you reach silver status. And then you get benefits of, priority boarding. Then you get benefits of like, all right, late check-ins and all this kind of stuff. When you reach gold, you get access to lounges, right, where they feed you and give you all this cool food. And, you get like first priority boarding. So you can be the first one on if you like, all your stuff is sorted, you're ready to rock and roll, and you've got a drink before they will are even coming into the plane, right? So I was like, okay, inside of the office, how do I know that someone's ready for wellness care? Here's the 5 criteria that we have, okay? Number 1, exactly what you said, Dr. Lona, their scans are looking stable and good, right? So the scans are reaching, we identified what healthy scans should look like. So scans are improving, right? Second criteria for us, this is the only one that's a subjective criteria. It's how is the person adjusting? So when I ask chiropractors and I go, okay, can you sense with your hands, okay, as somebody gets healthier, that they get easier to adjust, right? And my question to you, Lona, can you sense with your hands people get easier to adjust as they get healthier?
Yes.
Totally, right? We talk about tense equity, tension patterns in the body, and unwinding, and the nervous system gets more relaxed and at ease, so adjustments start to get better. So I say to someone, Lona, your scans are looking fab, lady. Number 2, you're so much easier to adjust. The way that you're adjusting now compared to what it was before, it's just nice, it's in flow, it's way easier. Number 3, okay, you told me we do spinal traction, so we use like Denerol, I use it at home a lot where they'll do extension. And when someone's head starts to hit the floor, it's a great sign. For me, it means, okay, their extension is restoring in their spine. Your head has been hitting the floor when you do home exercises, correct? Yes, it has. Beautiful. Spinal hygiene exercises, the head's hitting the floor. Fabulous. Number 4 is we give them, at visit 13, we give them a set of what are called life extension tests. So these are tests that I've got the research behind, but they're showing that if people can like perform these tests, they have better outcomes when it comes to their health long-term. And we teach this in Better Results Faster workshop, so everyone sinks their teeth into it. One of the tests is a sit to rise test, which means they get up off the floor unaided. One of the tests is a wall angel, right? They keep their back flat on the wall and lift their arms up and down. One of the tests is an overhead squat. Try this for yourself. So go to the wall, put your toes on the wall, spread your hands up in the air and try and squat down, see if you can do that. If you can't, step back from the wall, makes it a little bit easier. And we have one more, the way that they're able to perform just a normal lunge and normal squat. So if it's tick, 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 hey, you can do that. Wall lunge is looking nice and easy. Overhead squat's gotten a lot better. Great. You can get up off the floor, right? Fantastic. And then the final tick is we do use and leverage x-rays. Now, remember, sometimes x-rays won't ever fully reverse. So for me, it's like, are your x-rays trending in the right direction? And do they continue to exhibit positive momentum, right? Tick, yes, they do. All right, tick, 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 tick. Fantastic. You meet the criteria. Hey, super exciting. You know what this means? You're ready for wellness care. Now, that's why in wellness care, we give them the option. They can continue it weekly, like you said. Some people, quite frankly, are still twice a week, but they can continue it weekly, which if their objective is to keep improving, right? So guess what? Your exercise is going to continue to trend in a positive direction. You're going to continue to find those tests easier. That's called wellness care. That frequency is X, which would be weekly for us. Or if you want to choose to maintain and say, I'm happy with the level that I'm on. I don't want to regress and go backwards, but I'm happy with this level. Great. That's called maintenance care. Let's do that every other week, right? But I found that when we introduced the criteria and we were really clear with it, it became so much easier, first of all, in my headspace and then in my teams to be able to communicate to people, tick, 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 tick. All right, you're ready for wellness care. And I want to bring that up because I heard you say that. And it's interesting because success leaves clues, right? And I'm not sure if you realized it, but you have a set of criteria that you're like, all right, guys, we meet this. Great news. You're ready for Wellness Club.
And I think most of us, we have so many plates that we've spun to just open a business and start to grow it, right? That we sometimes don't do the heavy lift of really getting organized around what the clarity will be for someone as they matriculate past active care and then stabilization care, and what will wellness look like and what will it look 5 years in. And just that probably is homework to do after listening to this podcast, is think about, yeah, where does it feel like I'm just kind of floating along, not knowing exactly what the expectations are, and maybe my staff doesn't either, and certainly if they don't, then our practice members don't. Like, how can we get more structure around that so that it's not a guessing game?
Yep, love it. All right, guys, we're there. We're at the half an hour mark, so we'd love to keep talking about this, and we probably could all day long, but we're gonna have to put more of this into future episodes. Yeah, Dr. Lona, it's been a pleasure as always. I hope you have an amazing day today. I know you got a busy day ahead.
Thank you. You too. You're such a ninja. I'm inspired. I got to go work on my retention.
So guys, we had a pleasure today. If you like this, guys, one of the ways that you can help us the most is by giving us a nice 5-star review and follow us on podcast app. That's the way that it helps us get out to more people. So my question to you is, will you go ahead and give us a 5-star review? We'd be mega thankful for that. And of course, if you have any questions after today, or you want any support or any advice, please just reach out to either myself or Dr. Lona. We are very super accessible. I've been getting questions from people. I'm more than happy, guys, to answer them. I know Dr. Lona is the same. Otherwise, we'll catch you on next episode. We'll see you soon.
Bye, Bobby.
Catch ya.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like the podcast, please subscribe, share with your friends, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, please click the links in the show notes to schedule a call.